welcome to this episode of Ask Aviel. My name is Aviel. You can ask me questions so that we can share, learn, and grow together. Today, I would like to talk about some people who dug their own graves. Dug their own graves? Isn't that rather morbid? Stay with me as we journey along. We will definitely learn something from this. Our first example is Shebna, a steward. Isaiah 22, 15-16. Thus says my Lord Adonai Sebaot, Go, say to this steward, to Shebna, who is over the house, What are you doing here? And who are you to be here, that you cut out a grave for yourself, carving out a tomb on the height, chiseling a crypt for yourself in the rock? Shebna was the treasurer in the king's court. He was an official in a high position, as the scriptures describe him as one over the house. He was a governor of the palace. He wanted to be remembered. He hewed a grave for himself among the graves of the house of David. He wanted to be buried among the kings. This showed his arrogance. He carved himself a tomb out of the rock. He wanted a permanent position of prominence. He wanted to ensure that no one challenged him, even in death. Therefore, the Lord said to him, What right of heritage do you have in these graves? God was not pleased with Shebna's arrogance and rebuked him for carving out his own tomb among where the kings were buried. In our second example, we have King Asa in 2 Chronicles 16, 13-14. Finally, Asa slept with his fathers, dying in the 41st year of his reign. He was buried in his own tomb, which he had hewn out for himself in the city of David. They laid him in his resting place. Asa was a king, so it was fitting for him to cut out a tomb for himself in the city of David. The closing chapters of the life of King Asa were discouraging. He started off as a man who trusted in God. He experienced great victory, and he was instrumental in the renewal of God's covenant with his people. King Asa was a good man, but he did not finish well. The last years of his life were marked by unbelief, hardness against God, oppression of his people, and disease. He failed to follow God in faith. He refused to rely on God in the face of the threat against him from Israel and Syria. He refused to believe God regarding his diseased feet at the end of his life. But he was a king who was willing to get his own royal hands dirty. He used his own hands to cut out a tomb for himself. In our next example, Joseph spoke of Jacob his father, making him take an oath regarding his death. Genesis 55. Joseph said, My father Jacob made me take an oath, saying, Behold, I am about to die. In my tomb, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan, there you must bury me. Jacob was a very rich man with a large family of 12 sons. He had many servants, but he was not above doing things himself. Jacob could easily have paid someone to dig his tomb. He could also have ordered any of his 12 sons to perform the task for him. He was not above dirt, and he was willing to get his hands messy by digging his own tomb. Moving on to our next example, let us take a look at the story of this rich man, Joseph from Arimathea. Matthew 27, 57-60. Now, when it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea, named Joseph, who had also become a disciple of Yeshua. This man went to Pilate and asked for Yeshua's body. Then Pilate ordered it to be given up, and Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and he laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. Then he rolled a large stone up to the door of the tomb and went away. It was a new tomb. It was an expensive tomb. A rich man like Joseph of Arimathea probably had his tomb carved into solid rock. And this tomb was located in a peaceful garden. Tombs like these were very expensive. It was quite a sacrifice for Joseph of Arimathea to give his tomb up, but Yeshua would only borrow it for a few days. Joseph of Arimathea cut his own tomb in the rock. The people in these examples carved out their tombs. Scripture records that they were rich and influential. They probably had plenty of servants and people at their disposal. Why would they do the laborious task of cutting their own tombs? It is evident that cutting into rock without machinery is characterized by effort to the point of exhaustion, especially if it involved physical effort. What did all these individuals have in common? They kept death at the forefront of their minds. They knew they were not eternal. They understood that there was a day of judgment coming, and that they were not far off from meeting their Creator and Judge. Psalm 90:12 says, "So teach us to number our days, so that we may get a heart of wisdom." Let us consider the frail nature of humanity and the righteous judgment of God. We need to ask God for the wisdom to understand the shortness of life. Let us consider the brevity and miseries of this life. Let us be reminded of the certainty and speediness of death, and bear in mind the consequences of death. We need to be persuaded that our days are not infinite and innumerable, so we must begin to number them. This wisdom must be learned. It isn't automatic. Most people live with little awareness that life is short and their days should be numbered. Many think their days have no number and give little thought to what lies beyond this life. Let us deeply consider our own frailty and the shortness and uncertainty of life, that we may live for eternity. Let us acquaint ourselves with God and be at peace, so that we may die in His favor and then live and reign with Him eternally. These four men mentioned had the revelation that this earth is not permanent, abiding, nor everlasting. We too need to recognize that we are just pilgrims on a journey. The Father has a permanent dwelling meant for His children to inherit, possess, and enjoy forever. We will be with Him forever in His eternal presence. This earth is not our permanent home. Everything we have built and achieved must at last be left behind. We will live in a dwelling not made with hands, but in one that is eternal, in His presence. Thank you for joining me. I pray that this message inspires and challenges you. God bless you and your family. Shalom.